So Funny It Hurts is brought to you by Pacific West Injury Law. Got into an accident? Contact Pacific West Injury Law. Also, there's nothing better for your mental health than a great workout. And our episode is brought to you by Fit Club, the only place to be. It's so funny, it hurts. You ready?
Oh, yeah. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Welcome back to So Funny It Hurts. I'm your host, Michaela Gordon, where we interview your favorite funny people and explore the trauma that made them that way. I'm so excited about this particular guest because my mother-in-law is the reason that you are here today. And honestly, talking about trauma, I think there's nothing more traumatic than being a Blasian king.
Yes.
Growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Yes.
With a dog named Blackie.
Yeah.
Please welcome Michael Yo to the show.
Yay! And my mom gave my dog that name, Blackie.
Uh-huh.
It's terrible.
The
It's
Korean
terrible.
queen. We love her.
You know, when an Asian woman first moves to America, they don't know many words. So they describe things and they name things by their colors. Like people think it's like racist and stuff. It's like, no, she knew the word black and she just was a dog. So she was like, oh, he Blackie. And that's, even though it wasn't a great name for a dog, but anyway.
Yeah, but she was just doing what she knew.
She was doing what she
Not
does.
a problem. Listen, I have to say my mother-in-law is doing what she does. We just recently moved from LA to Vegas, me and my fiance.
Me and my wife and kids, same thing.
So excited. And I want to hear all about why you moved and everything. I'm loving Vegas, by the way.
Yes.
But the day I got here, created this podcast, my mother-in-law was watching the news and she goes, there was this guy on the news, really handsome, really funny. And I don't know his name, but you should get him on the show. And I go, well, do you have anything for anything? And she goes, Blasian. And I was like, Michael Yo? Because I am a fan,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
not like,
Yeah.
And I go, Michael Yo? And she goes, yeah, that's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if he gives you tickets, I want to go see him.
Oh my God, anytime.
And I said, okay. And then I happened to run into Blake Lewis from American Idol.
Blake Lewis.
One of my best friends. And I go, yeah, I have this podcast. And he goes, oh, you got to get Michael Yo. And I go, what is it with Michael Yo? Every sign led to you. I'm so happy you're here today.
I'm happy to be here. And the thing I love about Vegas, and it's starting to happen, and like we're both new, but I feel a community is starting here like over the last couple of years. I've been here 2 years, and I feel that a lot of entertainers are moving here, a lot of people that just want to help other people out are moving here. And I love that feeling. I love the feeling of Vegas. It's the best place I've ever lived. I've only lived here 2 years, but my kids love the schools. My wife loves it. She went to UNLV. She ran track for them. Her parents live here, so we have babysitters.
Hey.
And that's the most important thing. But it's just it's a place of community,
Yeah, it is.
That's what I love.
Me and my fiance are from here originally, but we lived in LA for almost 20 years. And so to come back, it's such a different experience. But again, like you said, everyone wants to help each other. I feel like the city has grown so much with all the sporting events. And also, I do want to ask you this because I started as a singer first. So seeing all these singing residencies makes sense to me. But now we've got like these major comedy residencies like Sebastian Maniscalco. I just saw Fortune Feimster a couple weeks ago. Is it crazy as a comedian to see these residencies happening?
I compare Vegas probably like 10 years ago to Dancing with the Stars. If you went on that show, basically you need to revive your career. You know what I mean? Or the joke is, if you go on Dance with the Stars, you have no more career. That was the tag people would put on it. I felt like Vegas was that 10 years ago, but now Vegas has become that place where, oh no, the hottest people are coming here because guess what? They don't need to travel. Everybody comes to them. And I think, and this is what I think we're on the same page, the older you get, the less you want to move around. You just want to be around the people you love.
Yeah.
And I think these artists are like, hey, it's great going around the world, but it's also great to do a residency for 6 months and stay in one place, make the same amount of money, and then you get to be with your family.
Totally.
So I think now it's switched where Vegas is hot to be performing and doing shows all the time. And touring, if you look at it, that's where artists make the most money. But if you don't have to jump on a plane or jump on a bus or it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, it's great for you because you have 2 kids, which you talk about
Yes.
so much in your stand-up.
Yes.
You're a family guy, and I love that. So I'm Italian and Jewish, so I'm family girl all day. And I love when you talk about your son. I love when you talk about your daughter.
Oh,
you would
my
die
daughter.
for your son, murder for your daughter.
Kill. I will kill you for my daughter. Yeah.
Wait, how old are the kids now?
There's 6. My son is 6. My daughter's 3. So,
Oh.
yeah, and it's interesting, like trying to find material, because when you're a comic, you really sit back and evaluate your life and what's going on, or if something funny happens, you kind of try to register it. So it's my material is getting more in depth with my family, about my son and my daughter. And, like the other day, my son, I walk him to class on Mondays. You get to walk him to class. Me or my wife walks him to class on Mondays. He's in kindergarten. And then the other day, I was walking, holding his hand, and he stops and says, "I need to tell you something, Dad." He goes, "I don't need you or Mama to walk me to class anymore. I'm a big boy." And he walks off, and I was like,
Oh.
"Ah!" I was so hurt. And then I go to my wife and tell her, and my wife is crushed. And then automatically she goes, "What did you do to him?" I was like, "No, I didn't do anything. I didn't do." But it's funny how the shift of, "Oh, he wouldn't have done this with me," as you know what I mean?
Yeah,
as
of
a mother. It's just interesting to see that dynamic play out. It's like, oh, it's my fault. Like I was harassing him at school.
You ruined this. You ruined the walk.
I ruined the walk.
Way to go,
school.
Michael, yo.
I know. It's all me.
My niece is 6. I just moved back, and that's my baby. Me and Lisa plan on having our own family next year. But right now, it's all about my niece and nephew.
Yeah.
My niece is 6. She thinks I'm a Bratz doll. Like, we are on another level in love.
Yeah.
So she went to a birthday party on Saturday, and she said, "Zia Mika, I want you to come." Well, at first she said, "I don't want you to come. You'll embarrass me." And I was like, "Bitch, what did you just say? I'm your cool aunt."
Right.
No, she wanted me to come. The day of the party, she said, "I want you to come." And I was like, "I guess if I can make it," as I'm like throwing all my clothes on to get to the party. And she's 6, and she went to her crush's party. And that's what she proceeded to call. "This is my crush, Eli."
At 6?
At 6.
Oh.
And my sister was like, "Yeah, don't you remember, like, we used to have
No.
crush?" And I was like, "I remember trying to be about that money."
Yeah.
And trying to, like, be a star. Never crushes.
At 6, I don't remember crushes at 6. But also, I wasn't even trying to be a star at 6. I guess I was a very uninspired 6-year-old because I don't remember anything I was good at 6 or really wanted to do. I was sports. I like sports, but the difference with because I'm a little older than you, the difference with my parents were they never said, "Go try this, go try that." I had to ask them. Where my son is like, "Oh, you want to try?" So we'll take him to things to try it out to see what he likes. Where my parents are very chill.
Yeah.
They didn't put me into things unless I asked. So I didn't start any organized things till like 8, 9.
And what was it? What was the first thing?
Football.
Okay.
At 8, 9 years old, where we were banging our heads together. Now we know that was bad. But I love football. I love football, basketball, track, all that stuff as I got older. But it was just a different time where now with our son, if he's at home, we're like, well, we don't want him to be bored. But 1 day, 2 days a week, we let him chill. But the other days, he loves swimming, he loves golf, he loves different things. And so we take him to those. So
you started sports at 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And like that was your thing. That's what you were wanting to do. At what point did you realize, or did you ever use your comedy to sort of get you out of trouble? Because you grew up in a strict house. I mean, your mother's Korean.
Yeah, my mom's Korean, my dad's black, so it was like a military.
It was strict.
It was. It was interesting. I could go out later when I was like 8 or 9 than when I was 15, 16. I remember my mom dropping me off at the skating rink going to like midnight. Because they would have their date night.
The skating rink.
They would just drop me off. But then when I got older and could get in trouble, they picked me up at like 10 or 9. I'm like, yo, what's the deal? You let me stay out late when I was like 8 or 9, well, however younger I was, maybe 10 or 11. But man, when I got to that 15, 16 range and they brought me to the skating rink or whatever was happening, 9 o'clock. I had to be at home by 9:30.
Yeah, and it was strict.
It was strict. And, like they were old school. Like my mom's 70, my dad's 78. So it was all about the If you acted bad, you got whoopings. You know what I mean? It was a different time. It was a different time. And get your mouth washed out with soap.
Yeah.
That was the thing. You know, they would take a bar of soap, you know, and then just face fuck you with it. You know, basically just make you like that? You like, you know,
is that maybe that's why I'm a lesbian? My mom did that to me, and I was like, "That's enough.
I can't take anything." Like no, but it's interesting that parents saw that and was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let me do that too to my kid."
Yeah,
but that was a big thing.
But that was old school. Listen, my mother's side is Italian, my father's side is Jewish Italian, and the Italian side Italianed.
Yeah,
like I was the only girl. They did not mess around. If we got in trouble,
we
were
whoopings?
in trouble. Yeah.
Isn't it? Now let's think today. Like today. I asked that question when I perform, how many people got whoopings, and I see people raise their hands. And it just blows me away how many women raise their hands. That means grown men at that time were hitting women with belts, like small girls with belts. And that kind of blows me away today. It was normal, and I'm not judging you if you did it in the past. And
I am. But I'm judging you.
But isn't that amazing?
No,
like not amazing in a good way. Like we were at a point where a grown man would hit a child, any child, but especially a girl with a belt and a little boy.
Yeah. Well, you're the same size as a little girl or a little boy. I mean, you're still little. And, you know, we grew up, I don't know if you experienced this with your mom. I know that my mother, we don't have a relationship, unfortunately. Yeah. It's probably because of the beatings with the belt that she got from her father.
No, but the
trauma.
It's passed down. And I think, and I kind of I'm starting to get into that in my comedy where it's kind of like, you know, like my father got it worse from his father than he did to me. You know, and being a parent is throwing away the bad that your parents did and keeping the good. And hopefully your kids will be better than you because they'll throw away your bad and they'll keep your good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course.
And I feel like I know my dad. He told me about the whoopings and beatings he got from his dad. So he thought he was easy on me at that time. And then I think our generation, I think we're called Generation X, my generation, we got to a point where it was so bad that we thought it was so bad, we overcorrected.
Right.
And now I am not even comfortable. Like I hit my son once on the butt. When
How'd you feel?
Horrible. And I never did it again.
You know, it's crazy.
Because they don't know. Because you know what changed my mind about all of it is that I asked my mom the other day, I go, so when I got whoopings, because I'm fat, in my mind, I'm stuck in this time of getting whoopings, right? I only got 3 too, but they're very memorable, like bad whoopings. And I go, well, after you gave me a whooping, did I do the same thing? She goes, right away. So I go, why would you know that doesn't work then? And that's why I was like, no matter how many, you can whip a kid, you can tell him not to do so, he's going to do it again because he's a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they can comprehend to a certain point. You know what I mean?
Well, but also I think we live in an era, and look, I'm not like a parent at all.
Yeah.
I'm an aunt. I want to be a parent. Fertility. Hello. But my makeup artist, we just had this conversation and I love her.
Yeah.
She told me a story about how she disciplined her daughter, and her daughter they have phones. She's a teenager. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
She gave her a little smack. And I want to say the CDC, not the CDC, the Child Protective Services was called, and her daughter was taken away. Like, we're living in a time where if you even remotely touch your child,
which
are
I also think is ridiculous because people shouldn't be telling you how to parent. What you do in your home is what you do in your home. I really believe that. But as the older I get, it's pretty, I don't want to say barbaric's not the right word because that's way too aggressive for it. Because barbaric is like throwing men in gladiator times where they were fight to the death. Like that's barbaric.
Yeah.
And, I mean, but nothing surprises me anymore either, you know? But it's a time where, for me, I didn't want, and I also grew up when my parents didn't say I love you. You know what I mean? So I grew up in that time. No, I love yous, got whippings, and I love my parents to death. And they love me, but it was just, I didn't want to pass that on to my kids.
Did you know that the love was there though growing
100%,
up? Like you
100%.
felt it?
Felt it.
They didn't say it.
Nope.
But you knew
100%.
you were good.
Like my mom said, I speak by action, not words. Like that's my mom.
Right.
You know? And since my mom didn't say it, my dad didn't say it. I haven't heard them tell each other they love each other, but I know they do. And they've been married almost 50 years this year.
Yeah. Wow.
I've never heard them say I love you to each other.
50
But I know they
years.
do. 100%, because I see the way they act around each other, how they're always laughing and joking. It's beautiful. I mean, I do a podcast with them, and people see how much
They're
they love.
amazing.
They're amazing. But you will never hear them say I love you.
But do you think that that speaks volumes of how it really is about you don't need to say how you feel, you do need to show how you feel, and that's in any and all relationships?
I think it is, but I think some people need to hear it more
I
than
do.
other people.
I feel like
Yes.
if you know my love language, it's definitely like words of affirmation. Like,
Yes.
I like to hear it. I like to hear like, I love you, all this sweet thing. Like, just makes me feel better.
Yeah, I think like my wife likes to hear it. I like to hear it because I never got it. You know what I mean? So it's very important. And I think I probably overdo it with my kids because I never got it as a kid. My whole thing is I travel a lot. I'm flying around a lot. Life is short. You never know about anything. I just want my kids to know, because they're so young, I want them to fully comprehend. They know if anything ever happened, how much I love them. And that's the thing. That's why I say it so much. My daughter is 3. She probably still doesn't comprehend it, but I know my son does. You know what I mean? And that's,
He knows you love him so much. He said, "Stop walking me. I'm a
yeah.
man now."
And he also said, "Stop telling me so much you love me." Like, he's that guy.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna be honest, I overdo it. I say it all the time. As soon as I see him, I'm like, "I love you." He's like, "Oh, Dad, I know you love me." You know.
I know, but I feel like little kids just do that. They're like, "Stop."
They do,
But they're like cheeky
but you
about
know
it.
what? He's gonna remember it when he's older.
Yeah,
and
he
that's,
is.
And that's the main thing. Because I remember my parents not saying it. You know, so I know, and you don't know this until you reach a certain point in your life, that how important those moments are, good or bad, in your earlier life, that you will remember later on. And now you kind of like sit back on them and go, wow, some of it was great, some of it was bad. And then by no meaning my parents were bad parents. They just had a different way of parenting.
Yeah, it was
you
just
know?
the tools that they
And
had.
that was the way everybody kind of parented back then. you
Yeah.
know?
You know, it's nice that your son and even your daughter
Yeah.
has somebody to look up to when it comes to you. I'm very close with my father, but we only recently got close. And now
Yeah.
that's my little baby dad. I love
Yep.
him so much, but it was very different growing
Mm-hmm.
up. When you were growing up, you joke about it. You're hilarious, being Blasian, the starter black man, like
Starter
all
black.
of it. You're so, so, so funny. But does that come from a place of making light of a time where you didn't have anybody to
No,
look
it was
up to?
rejection. I'm making fun of rejection when I was younger. I was a starter black because anytime a person would date me, they were like, "Oh, you're good looking for a black guy." You know, you would hear things like that at that time. A lot of white women would like test drive me, I guess you could say, because I wasn't black, but I was black enough. You know what I mean? So but it was by rejection of, you feel accepted because they're going out with you, they're hanging out with you, but you also know there's a certain reason they're going out with you. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not fully black, you're black, and I want to know how it is to date a black guy, but you're not really black. You know what I mean? So, but that's growing up where I'll hear that from black folks still today. It's like, oh, you married a white woman, he's not really black. You know, and it's just this, everybody's always trying to separate people.
Yeah.
You know, and my comedy, I really try to bring everyone together. You know, so I've never got, as a young person, I want to say it was tough growing up like that, because I dealt with a lot of racism, a lot of
Like from kids at school?
kids at school. Yeah, I mean, because kids, we don't know, you know, and what you do know, you learn from your parents. So now older, those kids were just expressing how their parents felt. Because I'll give you a great example. Adults are making a big deal of the mermaid, right? Being black. I was in a movie theater filled with kids for a school thing. I was kind of helping out with this whole school thing. It was probably 150 to 200 kids in a theater. The trailer for The Mermaid came on, and everybody yelled out, "Mermaid!" It wasn't Black Mermaid. It wasn't Where's the White Mermaid. It was Mermaid. So that hit at home to me, because I was like, oh, see there, first of all, I already knew it. Kids don't care. But these kids are going to learn from the parents that were upset about it. and then they'll get their opinion off of it. Because that whole room, it was probably like 5 to 6 year olds. They didn't care what color that mermaid was. They just wanted to see that movie. It's all these older people, my age and up, upset about it, which is ridiculous in the first place, you know? So, you know, kids don't know. And it's just scary that, you know, some of these parents out there have these swayed opinions that are going to affect their kids.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Little Mermaid was my queen.
Yes.
I loved her.
Yeah.
And I'm dark. I'm a dark Italian girl. And I never, just as you're saying that, I'm thinking back, I never cared that her hair was red or that her eyes were blue. Like I just wanted to be her.
Yes.
And there was I couldn't be. There was nothing like that. So it's crazy to think,
But also, as far as me, I grew up in a time where every cartoon was white. You know what I mean? And now I get
That's
to
gotta
watch.
be so isolating too, just as a little baby kid.
Yeah, but like you said, we really never noticed it because there was no other options.
Right.
You know, so I don't want to say it affected me at all because that was the only option. If vanilla ice cream is the only ice cream they're serving, vanilla ice cream is great if you want ice cream, right? So that was the only thing they were really showing besides Fat Albert, you know. But now I'm watching my kids watch multicolors of animated movies, you know, from Moana to Encanto to Little Mermaid. And it's beautiful because, you know, they see representation because they notice it. Because I've heard my son go, look, that's me. You know, I've heard my daughter like really attach herself to female characters. But then they do that with the white animated movies too.
Yeah.
But at least there's representation, you know, that they can see where I really didn't see it, but it didn't affect me because I didn't know anybody. It's kind of like growing up with parents that don't tell you they love you. You don't know that's not the way it's supposed to be. Like I never knew till I dated an Italian girl and
Lucky you.
All they said was, I love you all the time. I mean, they're very passionate about the word I love. And I was going, I thought they were so insecure. I go, are y'all insecure about it?
Listen to me. I have been asked so many times, am I being genuine? Am I being authentic? Because I say, I love you. I love you. What was different with me is my papa and my grandma were obsessed with me, and I was obsessed with them.
Yeah.
My home life, my mom and my dad, they were dysfunctional, so they didn't say it. So it was this dynamic of knowing I come from like this passionate, wild culture, but my parents like were on their own path and just didn't have time.
How'd that affect you, not hearing it?
Deeply.
Yeah.
Deeply. I feel like I have a younger brother who's the father to my niece and nephew. And I am so annoying to him. He was my baby brother. I carried him around. I made him do everything with me. And I always credit American Idol not being, I didn't go on this show to be like a famous singer. I went on to get me and my brother out of a situation I felt we didn't deserve to be in. And so I think I looked for validation and for love in places where I probably shouldn't have for a period of time.
Gotcha.
And then I made it funny, which is why I'm funny, because I know rejection. I know what it feels to not feel good about myself. So that sort of deflected on me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's what comedy is, though. You take what's great about being a comedian is finding things that people see every day, but don't see that angle of that. And that's what's so beautiful. You know, like, that's what's so amazing, that something that people see every day that don't know there's a joke there. And then when you hear it, like very seldom I get blown away from a joke. I don't know where it's going. But when you do see that, you're like, oh, that joke was right in front of me the whole time. And I didn't do it. And this guy found it.
What's a joke? Do you have one off the top? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No. Like, I've been told about a joke I have, has done that for a comic, a very established comic. I talked about, it's going to be on my next special. So, but it's about, I talk about how women don't make men better. We keep them average or ruin their lives. But then I give an example like, it is a simple example. I go, Rosa Parks. She was married. What's the first name of Mr. Parks? And then, you know, so it's kind of like, and then it opens the eyes of everyone like, oh, okay. So all these powerful women, you really don't know their husbands. Where if there's a powerful man, you'll a lot of times know their wives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it goes into that. And he goes, man, that Rosa Parks thing was sitting in front of me this whole time, and you put it together, you know, and that's great because it's way more to that bit. It's like a 10-minute bit, but that's a piece where he goes, man, you know, it's so simple, but until you pointed it out, because when I say that, the whole crowd goes, oh my God, because a lot of people, when I first say men don't make women better, we keep them average or ruin their lives, there's two reactions. You get laughs, but then women that think they're in great relationships don't laugh because they're kind of scared to laugh at it because the guy they love or they think this guy makes them better. So you have to start, it's kind of that you have to start cracking their case so they open up, and you have to present your case why this is. And the more I present it, you see everybody start loosening up and go, oh, we understand what he's saying now. Yeah. You know, I'm not saying all men are shitty. I'm just going, do we really make women better? You know, or do we, you know, ruin their lives? Let's really look at it, you know? And when you get people to, what I love is starting a joke where everybody's not on board, but by the end of it, people are going nuts for it.
Listen,
that's so great.
You have an amazing special called
I Never Thought.
Where you talk about
COVID.
Getting COVID. Oh my God. It went in every direction I thought it wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And by the end, you do a great bit about, I don't care if you're vaccinated or not.
Yes.
And by the end, everybody is laughing.
In that when I did that bit, because I perform at the Comedy Cellar so much, so I was doing that bit working out during COVID still at the Comedy Cellar. And man, it was weird trying to put that together. But what I know is no matter if you're an anti-vax or you're a vax, you're all about the vax. It didn't matter because I'm not telling you, I'm not judging you. I'm telling you my story. You know what I mean? And I think that's why it works with everyone. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm telling you exactly what happened to me and all the funny moments I found in the situation since I'm alive now. You know? And so even if you're an anti-vaxxer, you can't be like, well, that didn't happen. No, it did happen. There's medical records, there's everything that's shown. So now you get to sit back and go, oh, he's not judging me for my thoughts. He's just telling me his story. So it's kind of like I'm watching a movie. I'm watching this stand-up comedy about his life, and I'm fine with that because I'm not saying you suck because you're an anti-vaxxer or you're an idiot because you're a vaxxer. I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you my story. And that's where I think I get to push the limits.
Yeah, you win.
I win because I'm telling my story. And I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong. I'm just telling you my story.
Yeah. Okay, so I love your specials. You did just mention you have a new special coming out.
Yes. Well, we're putting it together right now. I'll probably shoot it towards the end of this year or maybe the beginning of next year. But I'm so excited about it because it's this one I'm delving deeper into being a father, relationships, just some random weird stuff that happens around me. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And look, my last special, I told my friends, like, that was a great special. And this next one needs to be just as good or better. But it's going to be hard because that one was so good. And so it's like a time capsule. That first 12 minutes is like a time capsule of COVID. Like, I believe 50 years from now, people will watch that and go, oh my God. That, you know, so that's hard to beat. But I'm finding other material that's kind of, you know, timeless too. That's what I try to make things that are timeless. And I don't want to sound like other comedians. I want to take it the other direction, you know, because so many comedians go, oh, my wife is this, my wife is that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me see how, and that's how I came up with, oh, we don't make women better. We keep them average or ruin their lives. Because how do I mean, yes, me and my wife love each other, and stuff, but how did I make her better? You know what I mean? And I go, most men don't make women. And I think in certain areas I've made her better, in certain areas I've made her worse. And I go into all that stuff. So it's very on me.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
And you guys have been married how long now?
7 years, known each other 9 years.
Wow. And she's beautiful. I love when she joins your podcast. I love all of the beauty tips and hacks that she has that you drag her for. I'm like writing them down. I love them.
She's she's very shy and she doesn't want to do it. But now I kind of open her up and she's like excited to do it because I just wanted to show. Like, I'm so lucky she's my wife, first of all. Like, she is amazing. And she's, I mean, way out of my league. But, you know, it's kind of like we have a beautiful family. And that's what my podcast, my comedy. And I found my voice. It's, you know, when I toured with Joe Coy and he brought me into comedy, I remember my first special, Blasian, in my mind now when I look at I was trying to be like Joe Coy. move a lot around, do a lot of things he does. Because I really haven't found my voice. This last special, me sitting down, me just talk, I found my thing. I'm a guy that just sits down, wants to hang out and tell stories. So that's my thing. Yeah.
For comedians or for people that are doing, podcasts for the first time or radio, I think finding your voice is difficult because we are now inundated with material thanks to social media, there's not just like one or two outlets where you share your story. Everybody from all walks of life can tell their story. So it's very hard to find this unique path. What advice would you give to people, even people that have been in the business for a long time, still trying to find their voice?
Well, I think it's hard to find your voice.
Yeah.
Because here's why it's hard. Because if people don't validate it, you feel like it's not your voice. When it could be. Just because you're not getting 1 million listens or you're not getting all the likes, you feel like, oh, well, this isn't my voice. And it really could be your voice. Theo Von is a perfect example where in Hollywood, he couldn't find his voice. He knew his voice, but everybody was like, nah, that's not the voice we want. You know what I mean? Like on television. So he goes, all right, I'm start my own podcast and do my voice. Now he's one of the biggest comedians, one of the biggest podcasts. He does 5 million downloads a month
He's
or
crazy.
something. It's crazy. It's bananas. He found his voice. He always knew his voice. I've known him when he always knew his voice, but people around him didn't accept it. Around him, I mean Hollywood. And then he did his own thing, and now he found his people. And that's what's so great about today is really be authentic to your voice. And I know it's hard to find, but once you feel like this is it, go with it. Because it may not take off. We're looking at the Theo Von, but there's probably 1 million people that it didn't work out for. But that doesn't mean it's not your voice. It means you just haven't found the people that like that voice. And sometimes that's a journey. I mean, I know some comedians that took 25 years to blow up. It wasn't like their voice sucked before. It's just, it takes time for people to find certain voices too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. Once you find your voice and you really believe in what you're doing and saying, that's when you move forward. If you can do whatever project you're doing, go, that's exactly who I am. That's exactly what I want to represent. And I know what type of people I want, then you go with it. And it could be a long ride, but at least you're authentic to yourself.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such good advice because I think that, and I'll just say for myself too, when you start something new, you want that validation. You want people to be like, good job. When you don't, you're like, fuck, I hate this.
Oh yeah. And it could move really slow and then you can have a pop and then it moves really slow and but that's life.
Yeah.
Like podcasting, anything you do, stand up, it's slow, it builds, it's slow, it builds, it's slow. And then let me tell you, and I would think, even some of the biggest podcasters in the world and some of the biggest comics in the world, they always want more. They feel like, man, why can't I sell out 2 stadiums? Like I'm only doing, like if you're hungry, you're never satisfied. And that's great. And that's great. But as long as you're realizing what you're actually doing and where you were last year and are you growing,
Well, that feels like, I feel like you've been building and building with this next special.
Yes.
You said it's got to be like my last special, better though.
Or better.
Do you, as you continue, because everybody knows you. You've been around forever.
Yes.
You've done it all. You worked with the Kardashians. You were with Chelsea Handler. It's not like you've been doing it forever.
But but go ahead, ask your question, but then I'll say something after that.
Do you feel the pressure of continuing to expand your audience with newer material?
No, I don't. I know it happens. That's why. Because I think I was talking to Rogan. This was a long time ago when I was at his studio in LA. And he goes, there's so many funny people. It's just about exposure. So I'm to the point now where I feel like I'm funny. And it just takes time for people to find out. Like when I put out my own special, I self-funded it. I put it out myself. I never thought. I had only 3,000 people on YouTube. Now I have close to 150,000 just from that special I put out a year ago. So that's my thing is like, I'm funny. It's just people need to find it, and then you may hit a point where you start going viral everywhere, and then you'll hit a low point where like, oh, your views are down. But it's just finding that audience. So I know I have a big enough net and it's growing continually it's growing. So I know if I keep feeding that certain audience that likes me, that audience will tell other people that like me. You know, because one thing, this is just for me, what I learned, you don't want everybody to think you're funny. You just want your people to think you're funny.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you find your people, you can live a great life just doing comedy. You know, like this, I'll give you an example. I was at the Comedy Store. Sebastian was there, Bobby Lee, all these great comics, you know, on the lineup. And Steve-O was on. And Steve-O is such a great personality, you know, from Jackass and all that. But Bill Burr and all these people are on the show. But when he went on, like you had some crushers on that show. The 60 people that came to see Steve-O, like Steve-O fans, they could have cared less about Bill Burr. They could have cared less about Sebastian. They were there to see Steve-O. And that's when this light, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I'm at the Comedy Store with the world's greatest comics. And these 60 people that came for Steve-O, they could give a fuck less about everybody else. They wanted to see Steve-O.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, oh, those people are his people. So when you find your people and they find you, that's your ride or dies. They could care less who's out there, as long as you're out there. You know? So that's why I stopped. Mentally, I got out of trying to get everybody to like me, or trying to get everybody like, oh, why do they like this person? Because that's not your people.
Yeah.
You know, like, why is this comic blowing up and I'm not blowing up? It's like, because that's not your people.
Yeah.
And maybe your people, it's going to take longer to build, but once you build them, you'll be around a lot longer. Who knows?
Well, something I love about you that you talked about, we talked about even before the show started, was you're a big self-funder. You're like a believer in yourself. You're going to make it happen for yourself. That's through your podcast, through everything.
Everything I do now.
Is there a particular reason? Because you could have help.
Yes. Let me tell you why. It was my first special, Blasian. You know, I know nobody really saw it. You know, and look, the company I did it, they're great. They're great. But I felt like once I recorded it, I had no control. It's kind of like I handed over a product, didn't own any of it, couldn't put up clips without their permission. On my own work, I couldn't do anything with it without their permission. And I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad I went through that, because when I did it my own, I knew what to expect and I knew how I would have rolled it out. Because I go, why? Because I would always ask, why didn't y'all do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do? So I was analyzing the whole situation of the first special. And then I'm like, okay, if I ever do it myself, you know, I'll do it. And then, you know, Joe Coy self-funded his one that went on Netflix that changed his whole career. He goes, you got to do it yourself. So I invested the money, you know, found some good friends that own clubs, and they let me rent it out for a very low price. And I shot my special. And from that special, it's changed my life, you know, in ticket sales, in exposure, everything.
Do you think it's an energy thing? Like, not to get all woo-woo, but it's like the work you put in, the energy you put into yourself. That's sort of what spreads.
And it's seeing it grow. And you know you did it, and you know, like, my special's been out a year, and I just signed a deal to distribute it because I own it. So it's going to be re-released, you know, through an 800-pound gorilla, because I own it. So I can do that. Where I see my first special everywhere, Blasian, but I don't even know where it's going to be. I don't get any money from it.
That's crazy.
Every single thing that happens, I get to choose where it goes. So now, I don't want to say I've run the gauntlet on my special, but it's a year. Now it's time to give it more exposure. So 800-pound gorilla is going to put it everywhere, where I just had it on my YouTube page. And we did 500,000 views, but some of the clips got 20 million views. So it's done its thing for me.
Yeah.
I made so much money more than the investment. And now it's only and when you do it yourself, when you distribute it through someone else, you get a lot more percentage because you shot it. It was already done. They're just redistributing what you've already done. So your percentages are higher. And big shout outs to 800-pound gorilla, because I'm excited about, and they had a plan and they want to put it out. So now it's kind of like I'm excited for the second pop off this special while I put together this next one.
Would you ever be able to like T-Swift Scooter Braun the situation where you could take Blasian, redo it as a special?
I
and
am
re-release?
7 years. I got like a year and a half more, and I'm gonna reshoot it
Love that.
when I own it again. And and now I'm a better comic as well, so I'll tweak some of the jokes. But that one was more of screens behind me with visuals. My first one, I wanted people to really get to know who I was. So I did a lot of visuals in the background.
Yeah, they were great though. I love visuals. Seeing your mother, seeing your father, I feel like it really took us there.
So when I get it back, I can't wait to reshoot that because I already know the material. So and that'll be like not a special, to be just, hey, this is the way I wanted to do it type of special. Like I'll put it out on my YouTube page and see what happens with it, because I feel like by then, because I know the difference between when I release my special to Blasian. I hardly get stopped for Blasian in all these years.
Wow.
I get stopped all the time for I never thought. Airport, love your special, saw your clip, sorry. Because I was so passionate. I wasn't just another client. I was doing it. This was me. So I'm putting money behind it, putting it in places, advertising for it. I pulled all the strings. When it's distributed through 800, they ask me, do you want to go here? Yes, let's do that. And we work together. It's synergy rather than, I felt like my first special is just like, after I shot it, literally, it's theirs.
That's crazy though. Like I would want our audience to imagine like you create this,
Yes.
you write it, it's your livelihood,
Yes.
it's your story, and you don't have fucking control of it.
You don't. And a lot of times you need to go through that to know what you would do if you had control. Because let's be honest, if they took control of it and it blew up and it changed my life like this last special did, I probably would have shot another one with them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So every bump in the road, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go around that bump next time and I'll do it myself. I don't want to take that bump. I want a smoother path, and I want to control more stuff. But you have to know how that feels before you can redirect. You know what I mean? So that me not having any control was so great, because if you look at it now, I'm a lot better comic now, and I own the better special now. You know what I mean?
I think it's an important story, that I personally have to learn, because I'm very hard-headed, but for others as well. Like sometimes we look at things as failures or not working out for us the way that it should. And when we redirect the energy the same way that you did, and we're like,
it's growth.
I learned. We're moving on. This is how we're going to do it now. And nothing has stopped you. Not having a family, not having children, not getting older, not all these things that I think we put in our own heads that society has told us. You've been like, no, bitch, I'm out.
I see everything as growth, negative or positive. It's growth. It's like, oh, I don't like that negative feeling. How can I redirect that and do it myself? Like even now that this one I'm distributing, for my next one, I learned so much from this last one that worked. Now I'm like, okay, what things can I change in that first one? And there's a lot of ideas I have already that I was like, oh, I missed out on this. I should have did this at the launch. But I mean, if you really think business wise, 3,000 people on YouTube, it was a dumb business move to shoot my own special. If you really look at it business-wise, if you were to go to a business manager and go, all right, I'm gonna spend X number of dollars on a special, and only 3,000 people are on my page. At the most, if 10% watch it, you got 130 people or 300 people that watched it. That's not a good business move to spend all that money. But for some reason, you don't think about that when it's your own project. You go. And my mind was like, it's great. I know it's going to work. I would tell everybody, I know it's going to work. Mm-hmm. I don't need anybody to fight. I didn't even pitch it to networks. I did it myself. I didn't, because a lot of people said, this special is so good. Why didn't you pitch it to networks? Because I told my agent, I don't want to hear the no's. I want the people to decide. I don't want networks to tell me if I'm worthy or something. I'd rather take that rejection from the people. If the people say, yo, we don't like it, cool. I went to y'all. The people that like me told me a no. And I'm better with that than some people in corporate chairs saying, it's a no. And you don't really know. And when I say they don't really know, I'm saying you don't really know till you put it out to normal people. Because when you live in LA, you go through a lot of castings and you get a lot of no's. But I can tell you as a comic, it feels so good when you can go up on stage that night and get yeses. Because you're like, oh, okay. The ego in you is like, oh, the networks just haven't caught up yet.
Yeah.
Because normal people, they
Love it.
like me. You know, your audience that you want to watch TV, they like me. And I give big shout outs to actors because they don't get that outlet of yes at the end of the night.
Right.
You know what I mean? They got to sit on that no. And that's
and if you're coming from childhood rejection, that's the last thing you want to continue.
It just builds up, you know? And I think, you know, we talk about rejection, how it makes you strong. It's almost dying in a hospital from COVID. Like that was, and I don't want to say cliche, but life-changing because it was like, this is my voice. I really got my voice after that. After I started sitting down, because I was too weak to move, COVID really changed.
And you had, for people who didn't see, double pneumonia and COVID.
Yeah, double pneumonia and COVID. And when I started performing after that, it took me 10 months to really fully recover. And when I started performing, I was too weak to kind of move around. So I just sat down and told stories. And I was like, and I saw the difference in reaction. It's like I saw people go from laughing to leaning forward and going, like they were into it and laughing. Like leaning forward, really wanted to hear. So I was like, oh, I found my thing. It's not that I found my voice. I found the way to present my voice. It's sitting down, chilling. It's almost like, because I'm a radio guy, it's almost like sitting down and interviewing somebody, but I'm just talking to the audience. What's up, what's up, what's up?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You gave so much good advice today, especially, this was actually all for me. I wanted the advice.
Good
so
for
thank you. You've, like we talked about, have worked with Joe Rogan, Joe Coy, like big names. Is there any advice that they gave to you that you took with you deeply that you still continue to think about today?
The Rogan advice, I think, was exposure. A lot of funny people. There's a lot of funny people. What's going to separate people now is exposure. And you'll see comedians that pop. You know, I know like 3 that have popped. But he goes, after you get that exposure, it's all about the work and maintaining it. Because that exposure will go away. You know, it's kind of like, let's say, American Idol or AGT. You get that exposure for a year, but then it's a new crop that comes in.
Yeah.
So how do you break through and keep that momentum going? You know, I got that. It's all about exposure. That's why I started investing so much money in myself. Because nobody's going to promote yourself like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are the business. You know, and if you're not putting money back into the business, how do you expect to grow? You know, and she's not a negative person, but I remember when I told her I was going to shoot this special, and I was worried about her going, oh, the money, this and that. And she goes, and she's on restaurants, very successful. She's on a lot of restaurants. And she goes, oh, that makes sense. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, because you're your business, right? I go, yeah. She goes, well.
Come on.
She goes, I have to buy bread and food and different things to make a sandwich. You need to put money into yourself to be a bigger brand. So she goes, why wouldn't you put money in that? And I go, wow, that is inspiring, and thank you for that. But it made sense because you are your business. If you don't promote yourself, who else is? And that's what changed. That's in going in my next special, I would put a lot more money into that launch than I did my first one, and take money out of certain areas I put it in that was beneficial, but I didn't really need it. It wasn't worth that amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're your business, and you got to invest in yourself.
Like, you know, a lot of people don't really, they're like, well, I made X number of dollars, I'm going to keep it all. No, you got to take a little bit. I have 2 kids and a wife, and I still take a little bit, throw it back in the business because it's a machine. It just keeps feeding and feeding and feeding. And if your video gets 100 more plays, that's maybe like, you never know what that could build into. 100 more plays, but that 100 more plays, let's say 20 share it. Now that builds into something. You just never know what's going to hit, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
No.
You know, you've been in comedy before.
12 years now.
But before like TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Before even Instagram, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you've kind of grown with what is known. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going with it. You're like Madonna. Like we all just kind of go if we want to stay successful. Do you think we're always going to need the comedy rooms?
100%.
Do you think social media has really benefited? Because we talk a lot about how social media is not great.
Yeah.
Do you think it's benefited comedians in the sense that you're saying with pushing
I have
specials?
friends that have blown up that are selling out multiple shows. So it's benefited them. It's benefited me. I've seen the audience since my last special came out. But I also think a lot of crowd work is going on, and this is just my opinion. I'm not a crowd. Remember, this is coming from not a crowd work guy. I've noticed, because I do Comedy Cellar here, people start yelling out stuff now. I feel with all the videos that are coming out about crowd work, a lot of people think that's comedy now.
That they can just kind of step into your territory.
Yell out, and it's going to be part of the show. Because that's what people believe what they see.
Right.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And if they're seeing every clip somebody asking a question, but people need to know these are very controlled parts of a show. Like, I have several comedians that do it, but it's like they do their whole show and they go, all right, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to take questions. And this is when that happens. It's not in the show. Mm-hmm. It's not in the show. This is like the last 10 minutes of the show when they're already done their set. And they go, now I want to hang out, ask me questions. And those are the clips you're seeing where people think it's during a show, because that's quite annoying when people are yelling out during your show. But also at the same time, those comedians that do that have no right in complaining when people are yelling during the show, because that's what they're presenting.
Right. What do you do, not doing a lot of crowd work, with people feeling like they can now step into sort of that invisible barrier as a comic?
I think it depends who the comic is.
Yeah.
I have very successful friends that say they still get heckled. But
I mean, even if they're not heckling you, if they just want to talk to you, they're excited to see you, and they're speaking to you from the audience, and you're a storyteller, you're doing your thing. Do you acknowledge it? Do you ignore it?
I hear people. I don't acknowledge it unless it gets really aggressive. Because I think if you're drunk, hands off, you just don't know what they're going to say. But a normal-minded person, if they say something and and they say it again and see I just kind of steamrolled it, they're like, oh, okay, he doesn't want to talk.
Yeah.
They get it. It's like, I'm not here for that, Do I want to get better in crowd work? Yes. Am I going to probably start? Because here's the thing. If you do crowd work last 10 minutes of your show, bring up all the comedians. You can even bring up other comedians that tour with you. If you do 5 shows in a weekend, at that 10 minutes, all you need is one clip from that 10 minutes. And that's 5 clips. Mm-hmm. And that's how these I know owners of clubs. When I walked in, you saw me call one. He goes, man, let me tell you, these guys that do this, it'll be 9 minutes of nothing. And they'll get that one clip. Because that 1 minute, they got to, and so it's kind of like that's the way, and I'm not stubborn either. And I think that's what a lot of comics, they get stubborn. And they go, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's not what I do. I'm not a crowd work guy. But if that's the trend, I better get on board, because I don't want to be the old guy like, I'm not using a cell phone. I want the one attached to the wall. You got to change with the times. And what I feel like, I'm the generation that started video game, Atari 2600, ColecoVision. So if anybody could keep up with the times, it's us, because we started all the video games. You don't want to be the old guy to be like, I'm not going to do TikTok or Instagram. No.
Yeah.
That brings people to your shows. Hell yeah, I'm going to start doing crowd work, but I got to figure out the way I want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen, I think that you're super honest, and I think you're super authentic. And I loved Blasian.
Oh, thank you.
I loved all of your specials.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so excited for this next one.
Yeah.
To end this, because you're such a family guy.
Yes.
It's my 8-year anniversary with my fiance today. Yes. Mm-hmm. Do you have any relationship advice?
Yes. My biggest thing, and I said this in one of my specials, but it's honestly true. When you're married, never say the first or second thing. Always say the third.
I love it.
Because you have to because a lot of times when you get upset with somebody, you'll just blurt out something that's very hurtful. So if you always all right, you kind of tick down 3 times and and then you say the thing you want to say, but it's in a much toner and in a different tone. And especially when you want to be serious with them, but also just let them know you love them all the time. For me, some people will be like, oh, that's too much. But me, I let my wife know I love her all the time. And when I travel, I even let her know I love her more, because I think it's even more important when you're moving and traveling and all that stuff, when you're not at home, to let them know you love them even more, because that makes them feel secure. Because I don't care who you are and how good of a relationship, everybody gets insecure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Michael Yo, I appreciate you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Woo-hoo.
Make sure you tune into the Michael Yo Show. We cannot wait for the special.
Thank you.
You're so funny. Give love to your kids and your wife.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.